You are listening to Audio SSLC, your audio medium for easy understanding and revision. To download a copy of this recording, please visit audiosslc.com. Unit 3. Before you read. Imagine your grandfather owns a small piece of land abundant with fruit-yielding trees. It is inherited from his ancestors. Your father intends to sell it. A. What would be the reaction of your grandfather? B. Complete the dialogue between your father and your grandfather. Father. Father, could we sell the land? Grandfather. Keep silent for a few seconds. No, we should not. It is inherited from my ancestors. Father. So what? Grandfather. It is my prized possession. Please write the dialogues about father and grandfather in the spaces given in your textbook. Read on. Gentlemen of Rio and Medio by Juan A. Cedillo. 1. It took months of negotiation to come to an understanding with the old man. He was in no hurry. What he had the most of was time. He lived up in Rio and Medio, where his people had been for hundreds of years. He tilled the same land they had tilled. His house was small and wretched, but quaint. The little creek ran through his land. His orchard was gnarled and beautiful. 2. The day of the sale he came into the office. His coat was old, green and faded. I thought of Senator Catron, who had been such a power with these people up there in the mountains. Perhaps it was one of his old Prince Alberts. He wore gloves. They were old and torn, and his fingertips showed through them. He carried a cane, but it was only the skeleton of a worn-out umbrella. Behind him walked one of his innumerable kin, a dark young man with eyes like a gazelle. 3. The old man bowed to all of us in the room. Then he removed his hat and gloves slowly and carefully. Chaplin once did that in a picture, in a bank. He was the janitor. Then he handed his things to the boy, who stood obediently behind the old man's chair. Read on. 4. There was a great deal of conversation about Rain and his family. He was very proud of his large family. Finally, we got down to business. Yes, he would sell, as he had agreed, for $1,200 in cash. We would buy, and the money was ready. Don Anselmo, I said to him in Spanish. We have made a discovery. You remember that we sent that surveyor, that engineer, up there to survey your land so as to make the deed. Well, he finds that you own more than 8 acres. He tells us that your land extends across the river and that you own almost twice as much as you thought. He didn't know that. And now, Don Anselmo, I added, these Americans are buena gente. They are good people, and they are willing to pay you for the additional land as well, at the same rate per acre. So that instead of $1,200, you will get almost twice as much, and the money is here for you. 5. The old man hung his head for a moment in thought. Then he stood up and stared at me. Friend, he said, I do not like to have you speak to me in that manner. I kept still and let him have his say. I know these Americans are good people, and that is why I have agreed to sell to them. But I do not care to be insulted. I have agreed to sell my house and land for $1,200, and that is the price. 6. I argued with him, but it was useless. Finally, he signed the deed and took the money, but refused to take more than the amount agreed upon. Then he shook hands all around, put on his ragged gloves, took his stick, and walked out with the boy behind him. Read on. 7. A month later, my friends had moved into Rio and Medio. They had replastered the old house, pruned the trees, patched the fence, and moved in summer. One day they came back to the office to complain. The children of the village were overrunning their property. They came every day and played under the trees, built little play fences around them, and took blossoms. When they were spoken to, they only laughed and talked back good-naturedly in Spanish. 8. I sent a messenger up to the mountains for Don Anselmo. It took a week to arrange another meeting. When he arrived, he repeated his previous preliminary performance. He wore the same faded cutaway, carried the same stick, and was accompanied by the boy again. He shook hands all around, sat down with the boy behind his chair, and talked about the weather. Finally, I broached the subject. Don Anselmo, about the ranch you sold to these people? They are good people and want to be your good neighbors always. When you sold to them, you signed a document, a deed, and in that deed you agreed to several things. One thing was that they were to have the complete possession of the property. Now, Don Anselmo, it seems that every day the children of the village overrun the orchard and spend most of their time there. We would like to know if you, as the most respected man in the village, could not stop them from doing so in order that these people might enjoy their new home more in peace. 9. Don Anselmo stood up. We have all learned to love these Americans, he said, because they are good people and good neighbors. I sold them my property because I knew they were good people. But I did not sell them the trees in the orchard.
You are listening to Audio SSLC, your audio medium for easy understanding and revision.
To download a copy of this recording, please visit audiosslc.com. Read on. 10. This was bad, Don Anselmo, I pleaded. When one signs a deed and sells real property, one sells also everything that grows on the land, and those trees, every one of them, are on the land and inside the boundaries of what you sold. 11. Yes, I admit that, he said. You know, he added, I am the oldest man in the village. Almost everyone there is my relative, and all the children of Rio and Medio are my sobrinos and nietos, my descendants. Every time a child has been born in Rio and Medio, since I took possession of the house from my mother, I have planted a tree for the child. The trees in the orchard are not mine, senor. They belong to the children of the village. Every person in Rio and Medio born since the railroad came to Santa Fe owns a tree in that orchard. I did not sell the trees because I could not. They are not mine. 12. There was nothing we could do. Legally, we owned the trees, but the old man had been so generous, refusing what amounted to a fortune for him. It took most of the following winter to buy the trees, individually, from the descendants of Don Anselmo in the valley of Rio and Medio. Meanings. Rio and Medio is a place in Santa Fe County, New Mexico, United States. Negotiation, official discussion. Wretched, unpleasant. Quaint, unusual and attractive, especially in an old-fashioned way. Creek, a small narrow stream or river. Orchard, a piece of land in which fruit trees are grown. Gnarled, a branch of a tree with twisted hard lumps. Prince Albert's, long double-breasted coat. Gazelle, type of small deer which has large beautiful eyes. Chaplin, Charlie Chaplin, 1889 to 1977, silent film comedian. Janitor. Someone whose job is to look after a school or a large building. Senator Catron. Thomas Benton Catron, a senator from New Mexico, 1912 to 1917. Don. Spanish title of respect, much like Sir in English. Buena gente. Good people. Ragged. Torn. Deed. Agreement. Abode. Home. Prune. To cut off some branches of a tree to make it grow better. Blossoms. Flowers on the tree. Preliminary. Done or said first to prepare for something. Broach. Raise the topic. Ranch. A very large farm. Descendants. A group of people related to family that existed long ago. Senor. A word of respect like Mr. in English. Sobrinos and nietos. Spanish for nieces and nephews and grandchildren. Speak well. Task 1. Here is an imaginary conversation between the old man and the storyteller in the act of negotiation. Take roles and say it. Note the underlined expressions. They are used to seek one's opinion. Storyteller. Good morning, Don Anselmo. The old man. Very good morning. Storyteller. Please be seated. The old man. Thank you. He is seated. Storyteller. The weather is fantastic today, isn't it? The old man. Of course. Well, you sent for me. What's the matter? Storyteller. You know, we are thinking of buying a site for our American friends. Please meet them. He introduces them to each other. They shake hands. I heard you want to sell your land across the river. Am I right? The old man. You're right. That's just what I'm thinking about. Storyteller. If you don't mind, please quote your price. The old man. Sure, it's $1,200. Storyteller. You mean $1,200 for the entire site? The old man. That's exactly what I mean. Do you agree with the price? Storyteller. No, I was only thinking that the land is really worth more than what you have quoted. How about $20,000? Turns towards his American friend. Friend, what's your opinion? Friend. I do agree with your quote, of course. Storyteller. Would you care to accept my price? The old man. Seeming to be hurt. Friend, I don't like to have you speak to me in that manner. Very sorry. Storyteller. Apologetically. Excuse me, please. I never meant to hurt you. If I did, I'm terribly sorry. What do you think you would do? The old man. All right, please see. I know the Americans. They are very generous. But I don't like to be insulted. If I say $1,200, it is the price. I don't need a cent more. Storyteller. Thank you. Here's $1,200. The check, if you don't mind. The old man. Not at all. He takes the check and signs the bond. Task 2. Write a dialogue by using some of the given phrases, asking for the listener's opinion to an imaginary offer. How about you? Would you like to comment on? Any comments? Would you agree with this? What's your opinion? What are your views on? What do you think? About the author. Juan A. Cedillo, 1902 to 1982, was born in New Mexico. He worked as a lawyer and held public office. He wrote about Mexico and southwestern United States. The following story is based on an actual legal case.